Now let's go to the deepest issue of the Bible. Okay, deepest issue, why it is rejected. Okay, okay. Now this is gonna seem like a huge detour. Okay, huge detour, but please stay with me. Remember, the goal of this is simply to develop confidence in the Bible's message. Okay, and I'm following Paul Chamberlain, Trinity apologist. Okay, on his book Why People Stop Believing. Okay. Okay, yeah, and fundamentally, foundationally, the problem that the world has with the Bible is this. What kind of a world do we live in? Okay? Do we live in a world where God and miracle are possible? Or do we live in a world where nature is all there is? Foundationally, it's a philosophical question. Okay? This is where the real issue is, okay? I've talked to people, and how did they respond to these stories? Jesus walked on the water. How did they respond to these stories? Jesus fed 5,000 people with one loaf of bread. How did they respond? Calming the storm. Jesus spoke to the storm. How does our culture respond to these kind of stories? The resurrection, second coming. Our culture, from our culture's perspective, it is obviously myth, obviously make-believe, wishful thinking. Because from within our culture's understanding, this stuff can't be true. Have you encountered this kind of thinking? Have you encountered this kind of thinking with people you talk to? The Bible can't be true because of make-believe stories like this. Because that's not the way nature is. That's not the way nature is. And this is the foundational reason why our culture has lock, stock, and barrel turned away from the Bible. Okay? Remember last time we talked, atheism's non-negotiable is naturalism. The processes that are visible, that we see in nature today, they've been happening that way since the beginning of time. Okay? Part of naturalism are these three concepts. Evolution, things change slowly, bit, by accidental chance. Changes, mutations, over billions of years. From the first living organ, first living cell, to humanity, the highest order. Uniformitarianism, that simply means it's always been that way. There's never, ever been a God who has reached in and done something tremendously big like creation, or the flood, or Jesus and so on. Over billions of years, okay? This is atheism's foundational, non-negotiable, okay? So this is there, and you've got this picture on your slide, I think, okay? This is the way they see it is. Our physical cosmic universe, there is nothing more. No spiritual dimension. Some even would say there's no soul. There's no soul. When we die, we're gone. No supernatural. Nature's all there is. Nothing more. Angels, demons, all of that stuff. What does the Bible? What's the Bible's view of reality? Okay, that's the Bible's view. Two completely different ways of looking at reality. Okay.
Jay, just go back. What do you mean by
uniformitarianism?
Yeah.
It's always been the same way. The opposite is catastrophism. God has reached in something big like the flood. So those are two perspectives. Okay? This is the biblical perspective of reality. Okay? It's a multi-layered universe. Okay? Hebrew would say there's 7 heavens, that whole concept. Okay? There's the layer where God lives. Angels. Okay? And the source of all the good that we experience comes from that layer. And then there's our physical, cosmic universe where we live. And then there's the underworld, the abode of the dead, waiting for the last time. And the demonic, that's the source of all the bad. This is the biblical view of reality. And this is the atheistic. And this is the reason why the Bible is dismissed out of hand. These stories about Jesus walking on water Jesus being raised from the dead are just nonsense when it comes to this perspective. Okay, in the Bible, Hebrew, heaven is only ever a plural word. Like sheep, there is no singular sheep, lamb, but the lamb maybe, but otherwise, heaven is always a plural word. Paul has this vision in 2 Corinthians 12, verse 2, where he says, I was taken up to the third heaven and saw things that no man has ever seen before. 2 Corinthians 12, 2. Okay, so the ancient understanding is a multi-layered reality. And we live here, but God is present behind the curtain, and the demonic is present. Okay? Two completely different versions of reality. The Bible adheres to the biblical one, no wonder it's rejected. Okay, what's a miracle? C.S. Lewis puts it this way: when another layer tampers, interferes with our layer. Simply. Okay? When God overrides something in our physical, that's a miracle. When another layer tampers, interferes with our physical layer. Okay, so now comes this long detour, this short, long detour. Oh, thank you very much. Thanks. Okay, my thesis for the next 10 slides is this. Okay, if this is the problem, if our problem is the foundational perspective, somehow we need to challenge this perspective. We need to challenge, can we poke a hole in this perspective? That's what my thesis is this. Okay, planet Earth, the difference between our planet and other planets, the difference has been created by God, by the supernatural dimension of life. God is intimately at work in our material world. Okay, so there's a picture of the moon, a moon here, and planet Earth. Okay. And there's a picture of Mars. Mars is a gas giant, okay? Lifeless, dead. Whereas planet Earth is teeming with life. God makes that difference. God makes it difference. So that's my thesis. Okay, and there's an exoplanet. An exoplanet is a name they give to planets that are way out in other galaxies. And it's interesting in the feeds that I get, and I'm sure they feed me these feeds because that's what I click on. Okay, scientists repeatedly come up with planets that are light years away that possibly might have life on it. They have, as far as science can configure, as far as they can see into that kind of distance, there's a planet that is similar to Earth. So the possibility of life is there. And it's amazing how often these news feeds come up with these discoveries of finding exoplanet that just might have life on it. Okay? Because, and then the theory goes, if science evolved, if life evolved here, it could have evolved there. Okay? That's the whole point. That's the whole point. Okay? So I would like to, I'm going to throw a couple of slides on here to show that, our world is not natural in the sense that we've assumed it. Our world is a sacramental world. And see about that? Simply, I mean, it is soaked with the divine. Soaked with the divine. Okay? And you read this song, Psalm 40, verse 5. Many, O Lord my God, are your wonderful works which you have done, and your thoughts toward us cannot be recounted to you in order. If I would declare and speak of them, they are more than can be numbered. God is intimately involved in every aspect of our lives, of this planet. This is a sacramental world. That's very much like during the Middle Ages, when the church had, quote, marinated culture for 1,000 years. There was this sense that God was everywhere. God was near. Everything happened because God was there. Okay, a sacramental word. That's my point. Okay, if ever you want to pursue this topic, here's a philosopher that I believe God is using in a powerful way to shape the science empire to its core. Stephen C. Money. He's a scientist in his own right, Okay, and he did another PhD, I believe another PhD, on the philosophy behind science. Okay, and he's a solid Christian. The internet is full of his videos. Okay, he is challenging naturalism, i.e., that nature is all there is. Okay, and from one of his talks, alongside matter and energy, which is the atheistic view. Life, that's all that there is. There's matter and there's energy. Okay? Dr. Meyer shows that there is a third foundational entity in the universe needed for life. Information. Okay? And it's we live in the information age, right? That's the name for our age. Okay? It's interesting that now we come up with this, this is more than a theory, this truth that life is foundationally dependent on mega information. Chance cannot possibly have produced the codes that are necessary for life. Okay, are you familiar with the DNA cell? Have you heard of the concept of a DNA cell? A DNA molecule? Have you concept that? Anything? Okay, every one of our cells, and apparently there's over 1 trillion cells in each one of our bodies, has a DNA molecule in it. And that DNA molecule is the code for everything that happens inside that molecule. It's the code, it's the information that is needed. Okay? And the cell's information system. Okay? Every living thing has its own DNA code. Our DNA on our bodies are very similar except for this tiny variations for height and hair color and those kinds of things, okay? They're the same. But every animal, every plant has its own DNA code. Okay, and they say in every DNA molecule, there's an encyclopedia of information in it. Okay? So this information could not possibly have originated by chance. There's just way too much. Okay? Another from a different angle. Okay? This is a picture of hemoglobin. Okay, that's the molecule, a protein molecule that floats around in our bodies. It goes to the lungs, picks up oxygen, floats around, brings oxygen to all the various parts of the body. That's hemoglobin. And apparently, they live for 1 day and then they're replaced. Okay, so very intense. Okay, the probability that this protein molecule could have been put together by accidental chance is so low that it is impossible. Stephen Meyer, the one I talked, he figured out mathematically what the odds are that all those molecules would be put together in the right order. Okay? In even one mistake, and the protein molecule wouldn't work. They've got, apparently these cells, they have a self-checking mechanism inside, okay, to make sure that they're perfect. What happens when the cells reproduce errors repeatedly? What do we call that? Cancer. Cancer. That's cancer. So they've got to reproduce perfectly. Okay? It would take billions of years. That Stephen Myers has calculated that the 4 billion years that are allotted for since the first cell till now, what they say happens, is not nearly long enough for that chance occurrence that one of these could be formed. And remember, we need hundreds of different types of proteins to make life happen. Okay? So where did this all come from? Chance? Stephen Myers has from within the camp of science, within the science camp, he has shown mathematically that chance simply could not create this.
Another guy is Michael Peake, very, very traveled arguments.
Yeah, well, there's more and more. There's more. He just wrote 2 good books. Okay, they're on my list. I've read reviews of them, but they're on my list 3. Okay, Darwin's Doubt.
Darwin's
The Signature of the Cell.
Darwin's Black Box.
Yeah, that's another one. Okay, so there's a picture of the human cell. Phenomenal complex. And there's Apparently 30 trillion ones of these in every one of our bodies. 30 trillion, that's a number I can't even remember. Okay? Now notice this quote. Charles Darwin, 1859. This is long before they had electron microscopes. At that time they had microscopes and they could see, barely make out the cell, never mind the detail inside the cell. Now they've got microscopes, they can look inside the cell. Okay? Charles Darwin in 1856 in his classic, The Origin of Species. If it could be demonstrated that any complex organ, not cell, organ, so like kidney or brain or lung, could not possibly have been formed by numerous successive slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. So Darwin realized, if there's anything in the human body that could not be explained as having been made by successive little changes over millions of years, then his theory of evolution would be shot through. Okay? And now science is discovering what's inside the cell, Darwin could not even understand the complexity of the organ, never mind the cell. Okay? Our complex cells. This is simply a few statistics. The average adult has from 30 to 70 trillion cells. Each one has a DNA code. Okay, an astounding variety from skin cells to brain cells. The same DNA. In other words, when a baby is born, it's one DNA strand from the mother and one DNA strand from the father. They come together and they form a DNA, a pair. A DNA pair is always a pair molecule. Now, the way, in my simplistic way, the baby in the womb divides, and pretty soon you have the protein or the development in the brain, so that the brain cells follow a part of that code. The kidney would follow another part of the code. The skin would follow another part of the code. Who tells them to do this? Who tells them to do this? What is needed for this? Mind, information, and not just information, you need a mind to control this all. Approximately 40 different types of molecular machines, and we're going to show a little video right over there. This is within each of these trillion cells. There are little machines, molecular machines. Each one is a specific protein that does the work of the cell. Each cell is constructed at lightning speeds or at very fast. Because remember, these things have to divide quickly. Okay, with precision, 100% accuracy required. Self-checking, there's self-checking machines that make sure everything is just right. And disease happens when something isn't right. And how do these cells do the work of the cells, and reproducing and so on? The cells take the molecules or the chemicals that are floating in the bloodstream. They take what they need, not what they don't need. So they're selective in what they take out of the bloodstream. Okay? It's transported within the cell from where it's from the outside to where it's needed. Then it's placed into the sequence to get the right order. And when the construction is complete, and you'll see it in the video, it's enlivened, animated. It starts doing the work it was meant to do. Where does that life come from? Okay? Let's watch a little video, a little clip. And this, I want you not only watch the video, but watch the scientist. He sees it superficially and he doesn't realize the depth that is here. Can you watch that now?